How to manage ADHD and how to manage the irritability that comes with ADHD. So, I'm sure a lot of us have found that on certain occasions, on certain days when we haven't had enough sleep, haven't eaten enough, and et cetera, that we feel quite intense and quite easily provoked and probably say and do some things that we probably regret soon afterwards or a while afterwards. I came up with a couple of points to help diminish the irritability, to help kind of keep yourself on check. So, here are a couple of points that I've come up with that have helped me and helped some of the people I work with. So, I wanted to share it with you guys and see if it can perhaps help you guys out. Number 1, get enough hours of sleep as often as possible. 7 through 9 hours is recommended. On days when you cannot get enough sleep, I highly recommend to take the supplement L-theanine. L-theanine is the calming agent. L-theanine is the calming agent found in green tea. And it's going to help you relax. It's going to uplift your serotonin levels. And it's really going to help you mellow out. Throughout grad school and in earlier college, I would have really benefited from taking L-theanine. I've realized that if I don't get enough sleep, L-theanine, taking the supplement L-theanine, is really helpful. It really perks up the mood and helps you be able to tolerate a lot more throughout the day. It perks you up and it really lifts you up. It's a nice serotonin boost. And for those who want a bigger serotonin boost, there's the supplement L-tryptophan, which is really good for boosting up serotonin. Number 2, do not deal, and I repeat, do not deal or handle important decisions with children, colleagues, the in-laws, co-workers, etc., if you have not had a solid meal. If you had not had a solid meal, it's going to be very difficult for you to think straight, for you to think rationally, and sometimes for you to think without getting upset. Because with ADHD, there is a lot of irritability that comes when we haven't eaten. Now, there's a theory out there that states that those of us with ADHD exists because of a biological need from our ancestors. For the ancestors we had that lived in a hunter-gatherer type of society, that they needed the ADHD characteristics in order to survive. So that's a theory from Tom Hartman, the hunter and gatherer theory. If you want to look that up, I also have a video about that if you want to check that out on my channel. So what can we do? Sometimes we can't have a full meal because we have, life is going on. We're busy, we haven't slept enough, the bills are forming up, things need to be done around the house, errands, etc. So before you go and do something that's going to be like worthwhile, before you go and do something that's going to take you a long time, or before you go and make a big decision that involves other people and other people's well-being and emotions and whatnot, yes, make sure to eat. So if you don't have time to eat, and if you need to get going anyway, I highly recommend to supplement with collagen. Collagen, from some research I've been doing, there's a correlation between the lack of collagen and ADHD. There's a lack of so much more than I previously thought with ADHD. I'm working on a video that has to do with some research I did recently that is pretty alarming, and it's pretty surprising, and it brings hope too. It's not all negative, but the more you research ADHD, the more you find out how many physiological issues we have with neurotransmitters and other components of the brain and of neurochemistry. So, I'm working on another video that details a different theory, one that I hadn't heard of before, that correlates with specific eating styles and a bunch of other stuff. So anyways, I digress. In this point number 2, if you have not had a chance to eat or don't have time to eat, like I mentioned before, please consider taking collagen. The more types of collagen, usually the better. And you're going to want to aim for something organic, something healthy, because you're putting it in your body, so it might as well be something good. So besides collagen, you also have Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt and pistachios are also great at alleviating intensity that comes from hunger. So, those are the things I take. If I need to go somewhere or need to get something done, I'm in a rush and I haven't had a chance to eat, I take a collagen supplement. I have Greek yogurt twice a day, every day. It has a lot of health benefits and it's really good for you, really good for endurance and a bunch of other stuff. And pistachios pack a ton of antioxidants and they also kind of kill the hunger a bit. So those are all really recommended because they're going to help you temporarily while you're doing what you got to do. But then you better make sure to go get some food afterwards because the intensity might come back to you. So it's just a temporary little solution. While you get your stuff done, then make sure to get yourself some food. And if you have trouble remembering, set yourself a reminder of some sort. Number 3, become familiar with what triggers your intense emotions and outbursts. We've all lived a unique life and have gone through different circumstances and are different stages of development in our life. So what we have to do is we have to sometimes become introspective. What do I mean by introspective? Is look at your past. Look at what's happened to you. What are the moments that have most negatively affected you the most? And for some people, that's really hard to think about, especially if there's been trauma and whatnot. So you have to bite your tongue, so to speak. You have to take the initiative. And if you have such intense trauma that you need to work out, contact your local psychologist or therapist and work that out. Work that trauma out. Trauma will continue to have an immense role in your life and stop you from doing a lot of great things and a lot of things that you probably want to be doing or should be doing. Because it brings forth a lot of negative characteristics that affect your well-being. So find out what your triggers are emotionally or through your outburst. Look back into your life at the moments that have affected you negatively the most. And then I want you to look and see what started happening after those events happened. What did you start doing behavior-wise? What did you start thinking? Did you stop going to a certain place? Did you stop seeing somebody? Did you start doing something else? Find out what it was. Become introspective about it. And then slowly but surely, you're going to start finding out what upsets you. What pisses you off? What puts you in a bad mood? What puts you in a sad mood? You got to find out what these triggers are. Because guess what? If you don't know what they are, you really think other people are going to know what they are? Sometimes they might. Sometimes they might not. Not everybody's really good at picking up on those things. So you, first and foremost, need to find out what your triggers are. And once you do, it's going to be a whole lot more helpful to handle yourself, because then you're going to be able to work on it little by little or at a pace that works for you. And then afterwards, you're with the people you work with, rather than avoiding certain situations, you're going to be able to talk to them and be like, you know what, I have a hard time doing this. Can you please help me out, or can you please not do that? And if your friend or whoever that is doesn't want to help you out and just makes it worse, then you tell them to get the heck out of your life. Those people ain't worth having in your life. If you have an issue and you find out what it is and you start working on it, and then you have other people in your life that don't want to help you out and discourage you once you're getting the help that you need to remove yourself from those people. Or you need to go to therapy and bring those individuals there with you if they're your family members. If you're trying to progress in life and the circle of friends around you that you have isn't doing you any good, you need to get some new friends or some new people you're associating with, or a new place to go to. And if they're your family members, well, that's your family. It's a little different. You got to talk it out with them. And there's also therapists out there who work with the entire family. So if you feel that might be something you want, look for a psychologist or a therapist in your area and knock it out. For myself, I'm working on eventually opening up a specific ADHD clinic over here in Cali. So sometime within the next few years, it's looking prominent. And stuff like this is something I really want to work on. Because in the ADHD community, so many friends and family members have issues with these intense triggers and no one knows what's up. Someone says something and boom, somebody else explodes and goes crazy. And other people are not aware as to why. And unfortunately, sometimes the individual himself or herself isn't aware as to why. So that's when you got to find out what really ticks you off so you can work on it. So, number 4, correlating to number 3, reflect upon those emotional triggers and organize your life in a manner that is going to help with those emotional triggers. For instance, whether you're starting to work on that or whether you're already in the process of that, there's obviously going to be certain places that you're not going to want to be going to, especially if they make you feel bad or bring you negative aspects or elements into your life that you don't need or that you don't want. So we need to be careful about where we go, how often we go, and who we talk to, what we tell them, and how often we see some of these people. Once you find out what your triggers are, you need to make sure that you help yourself out by not making your life more difficult, by surrounding yourself with situations, with people, and with environments that are going to continue to make your life difficult. I know it's hard, considering for some people that's kind of all they know, or they might not know where to look. There's a lot of social communities out there. I know there's a lot of extroverts and introverts who check these videos out. So everyone's different. Do what you got to do. You know your life. And if you don't know much about your life, you got to start becoming introspective. So the point is, you got to reflect. You got to look within yourself and find out what that is. Because once you know what your emotional triggers are, once you know what your trauma is all about, you're going to be able to work on it, and you're going to be able to help set up your life in a manner that is going to be most helpful to you, because those triggers aren't going to be going off anymore while you're working on them. And in the long run, you're going to be able to, climb up. You're going to be able to cleanse yourself of a lot of this trauma and of some of these emotional triggers. Essentially, you're going to put yourself on check. So when an emotional outburst happens, or a situation where you otherwise would have had an emotional outburst happens, you're going to catch yourself right before you let out the classic ADHD intensity that comes out in some people. That's where you got to catch yourself before it comes out and just gets really intense. If you catch yourself before you turn into that, and you make it a habit to keep catching yourself, it's going to become habitual. What do I mean by habitual? I mean that it's going to become normal. It's going to become the norm. It's going to become a habit. That's where the word habitual comes from. It's going to become the norm for you to keep yourself on check, and that's the goal. So it's possible. It takes a little bit of work, but you can definitely do that. Number 5, after you become familiar with steps 4 and 3, I recommend to become familiar with rejection-sensitive dysphoria, and then reflect upon that afterwards. Rejection-sensitive dysphoria is a rather lengthy subject matter. I have a whole other video over here on the channel that talks about it, so check that out. Check that video out and see how it affects the emotions of people with ADHD. Because I don't know if some of you guys realize, the people who don't know about RSD and those who have ADHD, that some of us with ADHD have RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, meaning that we get bummed out easier. Hey, if we go out of our way to do something for somebody, and if we realize that they're not going out of their way for us or give us the same amount of care, or respect, it hurts. It sends some people right down the drain. They just want to go home. They're like, I feel horrible. Or some sort of rejection or any of that negative thing, or feeling like you let somebody down or somebody let you down. The feeling gets really intense. It feels abnormal. Other people might look at you as weird, or why is this person overreacting? It's the classic thing a lot of us with ADHD are told. Why are you taking this so seriously? You're so intensely. It's just a a little situation and you're like, I can't help it. It feels like a big deal to me. And the reason why that is because people with ADHD, the central nervous system has a lot of hyperability going on. There's a lot the central nervous system is heightened. The senses are heightened. So when we go through an emotional event, it feels pretty intense for some of us. So that's a little bit about RSD. Go check that video out. And that's just a little snippet of what the whole thing's about. So I highly recommend you check that out. A lot of people have spoken to me on multiple websites telling me, wow, I thought I was weird and odd and really sensitive all these years. Little did I know that RSD was a thing amongst the ADHD community. And it is. It sucks. It makes you feel a lot more harsh than other people. And then, regardless of who you are, other people might look at you, get them out of your life for like the sensitive individual or the individual that takes everything too seriously. So it might make you come off in a way that you don't want to come off. Because it's not that people with ADHD are weak. It's not that people with RSD are weak. It's just that we feel our emotions really strongly. Whether it be feeling like we let somebody down, like it's over, it's done. Or we feel like we upset somebody. It's really intense. It's really intense. I've worked with people who break down for things that other neurotypicals, people without ADHD, would be like, how can someone break down over something like that? You have no idea. We're all unique in this world. Every human has their own life path and style. We've been through our own stuff. In the ADHD community, we share a lot in common. A lot of us do got RSD, so I highly urge you, go check that out. And once you check that out, you're going to want to reflect upon your past and perhaps those who have done you harm. Because you got to realize that a lot of people don't know about this. Heck, you probably didn't know about this. So we need to be understanding of those that sometimes have done us harm. Because there's sometimes that some of us with ADHD can be a little intense with other people who have upset us for whatever reason. So we need to be aware that we can be lit up, so to speak, quite easily. We need to be aware that we can be ticked off and saddened in an easier manner for some of us with ADHD. Because not everybody who has ADHD has RSD. But from what I'm starting to see, a good amount of us do. So I highly recommend you check that out. Number 6, find out what personality type you are. What I mean by this is study up your cognitive functions. The classic Carl Jung personality types. The 16 personality types. Some of you might be rolling your eyes like, oh, how's that going to help? Believe you me. When you start studying cognitive functions, game over. Because cognitive functions introduces the concept that the different personality types, the 16 personality types, have subvariants of subvariants of subvariants ad nauseum, exponent to the millionth power. I don't know how other exaggerated metaphor you want me to give you, but that's all you get, folks. What I mean by that is that there's billions upon billions of different varieties amongst these personality types. For instance, you introduced, I don't know, we'll just choose the first one on the personality type list. You choose 2 ISTJs, the most common personality type here in the US, and you introduce them to themselves. The majority of them are not going to be the same. They're going to vary in characteristics. Why? Because we're unique, folks. We all got a unique path and lifestyle, and the people and the details that go into that life and that upbringing, and then the nature, where you grow up, and you guys know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, look up more into it. All that stuff makes a difference. So there's a variety amongst those 16 personality types that is huge. So with that being said, find out what personality type you are. There's going to be a link down below of a test you can take to find out what personality type you have. And I recommend you take that quiz 2 or 3 times and answer as honestly as possible. Not the, oh, I want to come off as good or great in this area. No. Be honest about yourself. Talk about the things you stink at. If a question asks you, how do you do this, or what do you do when this happens? Don't say the answer you think people want to hear. Be honest. It's just a test you're going to be taking. The more honest you are, the better the results are going to be, which is why I recommend to take it 3 times. And if you don't understand a word, I highly recommend to find a definition of it. Google it, right-click it. Hey, you can even find a definition by right-clicking sometimes only. So do that. It's going to help you out. And once you find out what personality type you are, and if you're married or in a relationship or living with family or friends, believe me, it's going to be really healthy to find out what personality types a lot of your partners or significant others are. Because once you understand cognitive functions, it really helps you understand humans in a much different capacity. So for me, someone that works with a lot of people, this has helped me out quite a bit. Because it helps you understand that the way you view life, the characteristics and standards you have for yourself are radically different from everybody else. So you cannot go judging other people around and thinking they're going to judge you with the same standards that you judge them. You need to find out sometimes what they are, especially if there's someone who's close to you. Do yourself a favor. Find out what your cognitive functions are, and which ones are unbalanced, and which ones are balanced, and which ones you need help with, and which ones your friends and partners and family members need help with. And talk to them about it. It would be really helpful. Perhaps one of them to find out what personality type they are as well. So, like I said before, the link is down below. Check it out. Take it 2 or 3 times. And then after you do that, guess what? I have a video on that too. On ADHD and how that affects the different personality types. So after you finish watching after you finish finding out what your personality type is, I have an ADHD personality type video series. It's like, I think 4 or 5 videos on the channel. It talks about the personality types and how ADHD affects the different personality types. I got inspired to make the video because of finding research, particularly online, from this one lady who did a tremendous job doing research and basically giving information as to what the personality types are like at their worst. And what I came to understand was that, wow, a lot of the people I work with ADHD are usually at their worst. And how do I know? Because a lot of people I work with ADHD and people I work with in general, I have them take this test to find out what personality type they are, because it helps guide the session so you don't waste time. So after reading her research, and I came to the conclusion that a lot of people I work with are in their negative aspects of their cognitive function personality type. And usually the people who had some sort of situation going on in their life, or had some factors that made their life difficult. And most importantly, for a lot of these people, they had ADHD. ADHD really reflects itself upon the personality type. And if you understand cognitive functions in the personality type, you're going to notice in the video that I mention a lot of the factors that perhaps you or someone you know might do. Now, how do you know what you have trouble with? If you haven't really looked into yourself, I know some people are probably saying, well, it's pretty obvious. I mean, I kind of know what I have trouble with. If it's me, who else would know? Well, that's for outward things. There's a lot of mental habits and cognitive issues that a lot of us have. There's these unconscious traits and unconscious thinking styles that a lot of us have that we're not even aware about. So there's a quote by Carl Jung that stated, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will control your life, and you will call it fate." We gotta make the unconscious, the bad habits, whether they're cognitive or outward, physical bad habits. And we got to keep them on check. So that ADHD personality type video, once you find out what your personality type is, if you'd like, I'd highly recommend you find the ADHD video on my channel of your personality type. Give it a listen. It's quite a motivating video. And it also goes into the research of what the lady I mentioned earlier found out. And it coincides well with other research that I have seen and done myself. So I thought it was a great collaboration of sorts. So help yourself out. Find out what personality type you are. Then once you find that out, check the ADHD video personality type combo video. And then see what you have trouble with. Because I mentioned quite a bit of things for each of the personality types in that video. So I'm sure there's going to be a few. There might not be all the things you had trouble with in the video, but I'm sure there's going to be a decent amount. So check it out if you got the chance. Point 7. Do not be ashamed to ask for help, or to sometimes admit the difficulties you have. You'd be surprised how many people are not only understanding, but also helpful themselves in helping us find an easier way of getting something done. Because of having ADHD, a lot of us have issues with memory. When we're given a pair of instructions or told to do something, we might forget it 2 seconds later. Like someone's name. Someone introduces you to somebody. Hi, I'm so-and-so. Boom. Name is out the window the second the person says it for whatever reason. Issues with memory and ADHD is quite common. Issues with short-term memory, particularly. So it can be a little embarrassing to have to keep asking, how do we do this again? Or what was I supposed to do? Because we have been yelled at, scolded, insulted, just given negative sanction from other people who have become frustrated. Why? Because perhaps the person, whoever it may be, the teacher, the boss, the colleague, or whomever in this scenario, more than likely they didn't know you had ADHD. And at that point, you probably didn't know you had ADHD. And if you did, it was probably pretty difficult. And I know a lot of us feel fearful of talking about that because, unfortunately, some people with ADHD feel they're going to be fired if they let their place of work or their boss know that they have ADHD. It's a terrible thing. To be scared that you're going to be let go from a job because of a condition that you have. It's really unfair. And something I hope to help change along with other people in our society. People with ADHD, we get a bad rap because it's quite misunderstood. I'm working on a film that I hope will change this. So, do not be ashamed to ask for help. Do not be ashamed to admit you don't understand something. If you're at a place of work or somewhere and you admit that you don't understand something and the other person doesn't give you help or refuses, that's very unfortunate. You have to think to yourself, do you want to remain there? Is it worth staying there? Is something going to change? Also, you have to ask yourself, are you doing everything in your power as well? We can't always blame other people for our shortcomings, folks. We got to be balanced here. If you are not doing anything to help yourself out and playing the whole woe is me card, that's not going to cut the mustard either. So if you are not doing anything to help yourself out, if you have not got yourself evaluated, if you're not taking supplements, if you're not practicing a healthier diet and giving yourself some sort of workout, you're not taking the steps to improve your ADHD, and you're playing the woe is me card, no, that's not going to cut the mustard. You need to be doing something to help improve your condition. Do not expect the world to hand you stuff on a silver platter. It takes effort and it takes work. It's called collaboration. It's called balance. You need to balance yourself out. So, just like we expect common courtesy and respect from those people we work with, our place of work and our family and friends, we also need to respect ourselves and respect all those people I just mentioned by trying to be the best us we can be. Because if you're not trying to be the best you can be, and you go out there being a slob and expecting people to treat you like a king, think again. You need to be realistic about this stuff. Get the help you need. If you haven't got yourself evaluated, and the reason why I'm speaking in a bit of a more rougher tone here is because a lot of people with ADHD need to get shaken up to get the influence and the motivation going. Good gracious, some of y'all with ADHD need to be metaphorically pushed to go and do something. I got no problem being that person. I will help you out. I will push you to become the best you can be. I got an inspiration to help reform people, help people with ADHD become the best of them that they can be. Because I know the capability a lot of people with ADHD got. Some of the most creative minds, some of the most motivated people with drive. It's just that if we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not doing these things we spoke about here, life becomes really hard and life becomes really bleak and unfortunately really, really irritating and miserable for a lot of us and really messy and unorganized for a lot of us too. So we need to take care of ourselves and we need to honestly consider ourselves, love ourselves by taking care of our condition and our needs that some of us might not be taking care of. That's a lot of effort, but it's definitely something that we can do. If you're not sure where to start, look online. There's a lot of sources. You can watch some of my videos. There's other ADHD videos out there from other people. There's different websites you can go to. There's different forums you can go to. And if you're not sure what you can do or have seen multiple ADHD counselors and you're not kind of sure what to say or what to do, contact me and we can set up a session. Granted, I don't prescribe anything because I legally cannot do that, but I can help you find a good ADHD counselor, to know the steps to finding a good ADHD counselor. Because unfortunately, a lot of counselors and therapists don't know jack about ADHD. I went to multiple psychiatrists when I was getting evaluated, and I had to fill in a few of them on quite a bit of information. And when it comes to supplements, a lot of doctors and a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists, counselors, etc., don't really know much because nootropic stacks, supplements, are still rather new. In all of grad school and my bachelor degree days, I didn't really encounter much about supplements in books because it's still really new. It's going to take a few years for that stuff to become more prominent. I'm glad to see that supplements like ginkgo biloba and I forget what other supplement used to come up frequently, but it's a start. Granted, I don't like ginkgo biloba because it makes me feel empty. It's just my mind. There's nothing going on. And I know for some of us that's helpful, but that's good. It goes to show you that it's a helpful supplement. So, and if you're wondering, wait a minute, supplements for ADHD, what's that? Well, supplements are a mixture of different vitamins, minerals, herbs, and all sorts of different stuff. With having ADHD, there's multiple neurotransmitters that we have low levels of. Stimulant medication, i.e. ADHD medication, only helps out with the neurotransmitters of dopamine and norepinephrine. So if you want to get yourself informed on ADHD, what neurotransmitters we have difficulty with, and what we can do about it in terms of supplements and how to help that out and help boost those neurotransmitters, I have a video on supplements that talks about the difficulty we have with neurochemistry and what we can do about it. So go and check that out. We got to help each other out, folks. The ADHD community, it's a community of people, like-minded people, different-minded people. But at the end of the day, we got the same condition, and we need to advocate for ourselves. But at the end of the day, we all have the same condition, the same difficulty, and the same struggles for the most part. Being misunderstood by a lot of different groups of people and having to endure life in a way that most other people would never understand unless they had the condition and have lived through the things that we have lived through. Have cried those nights have had anxiety, panic attacks, meltdowns, have been late to just about everything, have crashed your car, have thought, just, is it worth it anymore? If those thoughts have crossed your mind, there is hope out there. Get yourself the help that you need and try these points out and see what comes up of it. I have a lot of hope for a lot of people. I consider myself a testimony of someone who took care of his ADHD, started taking supplements and medication, started eating healthier, started working out, dramatically changed my life for the better. I'm now finishing up grad school, so I can go full on to become an ADHD counselor. I want to open up a clinic. I want to work with ADHD people from all around the world. I'm humbled by the people that contact me and tell me the beautiful things they tell me. And to also work with different people from different countries around the world. It's so great that the internet provides the ability to do this. So, the information is out there, folks. Get yourself the help you need. Most importantly, get yourself the help that you deserve. Underlying message: start implementing some of these practices into your life. Most importantly, if you haven't gotten yourself evaluated or started taking supplements or doing something to help your ADHD, it doesn't have to be that. It can just be working out. Anything that works for you that is not going to destroy your life. Do something to help your condition out. Educate yourself and find the means to get yourself that help. Do what you got to do. Understand that a lot of us need to get the help, not that we want, but the help that we really need for the betterment of our lives. So folks, at the end of the day, we all got similar needs. We're human beings, but human beings with a unique condition that brings different struggles and different difficulties that a lot of people don't understand. So get yourself the help, not only that you need for a lot of us, but the help that you truly deserve.